Hello, good evening. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. I think we need to discuss this issue of SADC. SADC leaders have endorsed ZANU PF's propaganda uh, argument that sanctions are the biggest problem, are the root cause of Zimbabwe's economic meltdown. Now, this is not true. Uh, they have not uh, uh, over the years, for the last 20 years, ZANU-PF has never presented any uh, convincing evidence with figures to back it up to show that how the sanctions could be the root cause, as compared to corruption and gross mismanagement, which are the root causes of the country's economic meltdown. What people must understand here, why ZANU-PF is mounting this very aggressive propaganda um, case on sanctions, is very simple. ZANU-PF is also blatantly rigging the 2023 elections. And the party needs to draw attention away from the vote rigging by creating this parallel propaganda argument, narrative of sanctions. And at the present moment, judging from the reaction from SADC and the AU, ZANU-PF is making serious traction on that issue. SADC have already decided to call October 25th anti-sanctions day in support of ZANU-PF, calling for sanctions to be lifted. We saw in last month at the UN General Assembly, one African leader after another queuing up to condemn, uh, to call on sanctions imposed by the West on Zimbabwe to be lifted. The truth of the matter is, ZANU-PF is rigging these elections. And it is the elections that are most important here. I'll take one example. ZANU-PF has already decided that the 3 million, by its own reckoning, Zimbabweans in the diaspora will be denied the vote in the coming 2023 elections. 3 million. This is a very significant number, considering that Mnangagwa won the 2018 elections with 2.4 million votes. So this is a very significant number. And their argument, according to the party spokesperson, Patrick Chinamasa, was that the party is not going to grant the people in the diaspora the vote until the sanctions are removed. Now, this is an unbelievable, incredibly stupid argument. What has those people in the diaspora got to do with the sanctions? The sanctions were imposed by the West, not the people in the diaspora. You do not go home and beat up your wife and children just because you had a quarrel with your neighbor. What has the children and wife got to do with that quarrel? The truth of the matter is, ZANU-PF has done this, denied the vote, for the simple reason that they know that the majority of the people in the diaspora are either economic refugees or political refugees. And they blame ZANU-PF for their plight. Those people are not going to vote for ZANU-PF in the elections. And what makes it worse for the party is that they know if the voting is done in the diaspora, the party has got very little opportunity to rig those elections. It cannot intimidate the people in the diaspora, and it cannot rig the process, because if the voting is done in the various countries and the counting is done there, there's very little opportunity for the regime to rig the results. And that's why they've decided they're not going to allow people to vote. This is cherry picking on who can vote. And that is counter to the whole principle of free, fair, and credible elections. We want free, fair, and credible elections. And that point should not be open for discussion. It should be shown. It should be the reality. We have got to accept that ZANU-PF's campaign to have sanctions put on the agenda, or SADC agenda and the AU agenda, has pleased the leaders in the party, because they are hoping could the same dedication, the same blind foolishness will be shown by the SADC and the AU leaders, will be shown again come the elections next year, which we know ZANU-PF is rigging. But if SADC are going to rubber stamp the process as free, fair, and credible, then we'll end up with a situation where ZANU-PF is legitimacy is confirmed. Zimbabwe is in this economic and political mess because for the last 42 years, the country has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. That is at the heart of this discussion. And SADC, come the 2023 elections, AU and all the other observers will be asked to observe those elections and give a judgment on whether or not the election process is free, fair, and credible. And that is the focus of those elections. And for them to fail to accept that reality and rubber stamp a process in which, giving the example I've given before, the 3 million in the diaspora denied the vote, in which ZANU-PF has cherry-picked who can vote and who cannot vote, is totally unacceptable. I think we have got to condemn SADC's approach of all for one and one for all when it comes to sanction issues being extended to the election come 2023. That we cannot accept. We cannot accept perpetuating the ZANU-PF dictatorship that has landed the country into this mess. Free, fair, and credible elections is the key to ending Zimbabwe's economic meltdown, and that has left so many people in abject poverty and in despair. Implement the reforms, hold free, fair, and credible elections. That is the solution. If SADC was to turn around and say those elections were not free, fair, and credible, Zimbabwe would be in the same situation it was in 2000 in 2008, where the ZANU-PF was forced to go into a GNU. The subtle difference this time is that if we were to go into another GNU, this time ZANU-PF and our friends in the opposition will not be involved in that GNU. We will get others who can implement those democratic reforms and finally get us out of this mess so that we have free, fair, and credible elections and a competent government. That is at the heart of this argument. And as we go into 2023, the cheating, the want of violence by ZANU-PF is going to increase. But also on a parallel path, the party will be mounting, will go into overdrive on its propaganda to create the impression, to divert the attention of the international world from the flawed electoral process to things like sanctions, which have got nothing to do with elections. And we have got to be on the lookout for it, and we must avoid it. And we must mount our own parallel narrative to make sure that that does not happen. The worst thing that can happen in 2023 is for ZANU-PF to blatantly rig the elections and get away with it and get the endorsement of SADC and the AU and legitimacy. That is the worst thing that can happen. We cannot stop ZANU-PF going to these elections. We cannot stop it rigging these elections. But what we can stop is making sure that SADC and the AU does not rubber stamp those elections and give ZANU-PF legitimacy. That we can stop, and that we must stop. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.